What's up, everyone? Jason Gilbo here with Rob Mazika, taking a look at tonight's eight-game NBA slate. Overall, a couple teams on back-to-backs. We get ourselves a Nets game, which you and I were talking. I mean, one, it's always the best fantasy matchup, but a little bit riskier than usual.
It is a little bit riskier than usual. And then we have other games too that are going to be nice, like Miami and Phoenix. And there's a couple games with higher totals as well. Every game's over 200 tonight. So really looking at players in just about every game.
Yeah, definitely. In Chicago, Toronto kicking things off here. Toronto, small favorites at home. I don't mind some of the Bulls guys here. I mean, Jimmy Butler's obviously going to see a monster usage without Dwayne Wade. He's a little bit cheaper in comparison to Kawhi Leonard tonight. I think he is safe in all formats, though.
I think it is too. And there's enough value tonight where you could even play both him and Leonard. He's killed the Raptors twice this season, averaging 58 fantasy points per game against them in 2 games. Without Wade, he really just carries the offense, and it's a good spot.
I feel like the rest of the guys are just basically tournament options. I mean, Rondo, had a nice little stretch there, but he's kind of come back down to earth over the last few games. Granted, they were tougher matchups. Definitely just a tournament play at this point.
Yeah, Rondo's a tournament play for me. Low floor, but really high upside. I also like Denzel Valentine for tournaments as well. He's been getting about 28 minutes per game since the Wade injury, and it's definitely a spot where he could produce.
Yeah, it is, and it's a guy who's usually find himself around about 11 fantasy or real points per game. Went out and rebounded really well last game, so I kind of hope that continues. I don't think we see quite that ceiling, but I do think he's actually a decent play in this spot, even though it's kind of not the best matchup on paper.
Yeah, and he's priced a little high, which is going to keep a lot of people off him, but it's still a good spot. And then one other guy in Chicago, another tournament play, Bobby Portis. He's a guy who can come off the bench and really put up a lot of points.
Between him and Mirotic, I mean, it's basically whoever runs hot and whoever's going to stay in the game. I just can't. I've been on the wrong side of both those guys just too much this year. I don't know if I can do it.
I don't mind having exposure to both of them in tournaments on separate lineups, never the same.
And on the Toronto side, I don't have a ton of interest here in terms of GPP upside, but Serge Ibaka at a reasonable price and Corey Joseph, if you need some value, are probably the only two guys that I'm looking at.
Same here. Corey Joseph, cash game point guard. He's always safe to get you around that 25 fantasy points. And Ibaka is not a bad spot for him either.
Chicago's been trading down against power forwards over the second half. Next one here, got Phoenix and Miami, 216 total. Somewhat of a blowout concern here. I mean, according to Vegas, they are 12-point favorites. I'm not really too worried about it. I like this game way too much.
I like it too, and it's actually the highest total on the board, and second highest total on the board in general. We got a revenge game for Dragic against his old team. He's going to be motivated to play big and play big minutes and do a lot in the game.
Yeah, Dragic, I mean, great play in all formats. I like the upside. No waiters, I like him even more. And with no waiters, I mean, Josh Richardson's the guy that I'm looking at tonight to kind of step in. Obviously I'm not expecting a ton out of him. He's just more of a salary relief play and in a good spot in an up-tempo matchup.
Yeah, Richardson's a safe cash game play in my opinion. I don't think he has a ton of upside right now, especially with Dragic carrying the load and Whiteside in a great spot as well. But I don't mind him in cash.
As far as James Johnson goes, he might actually be my favorite play on this team. With waiters out, this guy has actually been on fire in the games that he's missed. One, he just produces across the board in terms of fantasy stats. And in this game really does kind of suit his style.
It does, and he has triple-double upside, which we love to see.
Anyone else there?
No one on Miami, but on the Phoenix side, there's a couple guys that I'm looking at.
Oh, yeah, I guess we totally just glossed over Phoenix. Yeah, I mean, they do actually offer up a couple of guys, even though it's a lower total than what they're used to. I don't mind these guys.
I don't mind them either. We got Tyler Ulis. He's priced a little high, but I don't mind taking a shot on him in tournaments. Al Williams, he's accurately priced. And Whiteside hasn't really been the best on defense this year. He's been giving up some big games to opposing centers.
Yeah, I like Williams. I mean, he's averaging right around 30 fantasy points on both sides over the last 10 games. His price is coming back down a little bit more. As you said with Ulis, I mean, I like him a little bit more on FanDuel just because of the price tag. I mean, it's about $1,000 difference. And as far as other guys, I mean, I think TJ Warren's probably your only other safer option.
I think so too. It's really only comes down to those three guys. You could take some tournament shots on Marquise Chris, but it's a little tough.
Yeah. And Warren, much better play on FanDuel where he's only 6,500.
Yep, along with Ulis.
Detroit and Brooklyn next year, 110 total for Detroit. Starting with them, we'll talk about the backcourt. Basically, if Reggie Jackson comes out and does poorly, he's going to play mid-20s in minutes, and then we'll see a good amount of Ish Smith.
Yeah, it's tough to predict which point guard's going to have a good game. If Jackson runs hot in this matchup, though, and gets his normal 28, 29 minutes a game, he could absolutely go off in this one. We know how bad Brooklyn is, and pretty much almost everyone on the Detroit starting five is in play.
I mean, the good thing about Jackson is even when he's playing a little bit limited minutes, he's getting a ton of shot attempts up, which I like because if it does start to drop, then obviously he's going to be in there for around 30 and, has that upside for a really cheap price.
He's a high usage player, and then we had on that team as well, Andre Drummond, who actually hasn't played well against the Nets at all. Got in foul trouble last time out early, and then he just kind of just sat the rest of the game. He got 2 quick fouls early in the game, and they really just didn't use him. They didn't really need it, though.
Now, and I kind of worry about him. I mean, I don't know how much I'll be using him tonight just because I prefer a couple other centers. I do like the forwards, though. I do like Tobias Harris at a reasonable price. Marcus Morris is a GPP guy for me. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I mean, I like him really only on FanDuel where he's only 4,700 and you have to roster 2 shooting guards.
Yeah, I pretty much just like this entire team. We already know that I like picking guys against the Nets. And then there's even guys in the Nets who we're looking towards today, too.
Yeah, I mean, Brook Lopez, good historic numbers against, Drummond. I like him a lot on DraftKings. One, you can roster 2 when he's only 6,500.
Yeah, he's a high usage player. He really is, especially with Lynn out, he's going to just carry this offense. And speaking of Lynn being out, we got Spencer Dinwiddie, who Kenny Atkinson came out and said is going to start the rest of the season. And he's min price on FanDuel, 3,800 on DraftKings. He's going to be a great value play tonight.
Yeah, I don't mind tossing some shots with him. I mean, usually I tend to stay away from some of these Nets shooting guards, point guards, and small forwards just because the minutes can be a little bit inconsistent. But I actually don't mind him at his price.
Exactly. And coming off a game where he actually got 30 minutes too, so he could get around that again.
It's encouraging. And the fact that he's shooting guard eligible on DraftKings makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, he's a nice cheap option if you want to use him.
Memphis and New Orleans, next one here, 209 total. Pelicans are favored at home. This is probably one of my least favorite games tonight. As far as the Memphis side, I think Mike Conley is probably the only guy I have interest in.
Same here. Tony Allen got ruled out. Mike Conley is really the only one I'm looking at. Tough matchup for Gasol in the front court against Davis and Cousins. So it really just comes down to Conley or no one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to take any shots. I know, with Parsons out, we've seen Vince Carter come in and get a decent amount of minutes. With Allen out, you're probably going to see some James Ennis, but none of those guys really have tremendous upside.
Yeah, and Conley's been hot lately too.
Yeah, Conley's a good price, especially on DraftKings, only 7,600.
And on the New Orleans side, I'm really just not looking towards anyone. Memphis is a really tough defensive team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I tend to stay away from taking guys against Memphis, especially on FanDuel. I think at some of those prices. I mean, Cousins is cheap, 8,800. Davis 10,900, though. I'm staying away. DraftKings kind of priced him down a little bit just because of the matchup. I mean, it's more of if you're building multiple lineups that I see using them.
Yeah, Cousins and Davis for tournaments only. They're not going to be high owned at all, but it's not a best spot for them, but they're going to be low owned. And whenever you get a stud at low owned, it's a good play.
Yeah, and I'm staying away from the guards tonight. I think we've already named a couple of other guards that are just much safer options and in better spots.
Me too.
Golden State Dallas, 207 total here. Warriors just 5-point favorites, and we kind of noticed that, a little bit lower total here for the Warriors on the road back to back. I know Dallas plays at a slow pace, but I don't know, maybe it could indicate something.
I'm not sure. It might. Iguodala was ruled out already. But pretty much everyone on the Golden State side is just too expensive for me right now. We got the battle of the Currys, but Steph Curry really hasn't shown a huge game.
No, we haven't seen a ton of upside out of him in quite some time. I mean, I'm fine with using a narrative standpoint, but that's about it. I mean, I've just kind of been off the Curry train for quite some time because the upside hasn't been there.
I agree. And Draymond Green, his price is pretty high. So is Thompson's. It's just tough to use these guys right now.
Yeah, I mean, we look at last night as kind of an indicator where they put up their share of points, but it was really spread out. No one really met their kind of GPP value.
Yeah, and on a road back-to-back as well, it's always tough.
Yeah. As far as Dallas goes, I mean, Seth Curry, he's been hot this year.
I like Seth Curry. I like Harrison Barnes. That's about it for me, though. Maybe a little interest on Wesley Matthews as well.
Yeah, I have some interest in Matthews. Once again, more on FanDuel just because he's only 4,500 and you kind of roster the two. Yeah, those are probably the three that I do have some interest in. Mainly if there wasn't a narrative behind either of those guys, I wouldn't be interested.
Seth Curry's looked bad his last 2 games too. Actually, 4 of his last 5 games he's looked bad, but he'll be motivated to go against his brother.
Yeah. But I think they're all reasonable options and they're all at reasonable price tags too.
Definitely. And Barnes actually carries upside in this one because he's motivated for the revenge game.
Yeah, and he's played well against them this year.
Yeah, that always happens.
Spurs, Minnesota, next one here, 205 total. As far as Kawhi goes, I think he's a guy you can certainly pay up for in all formats.
I agree. There's just no one really. There's no Westbrook, no Harden. Like you got to pay up for someone, and he's killed Minnesota this season.
Yeah, he has. And this is a guy, one of those 5 category producers. LaMarcus Aldridge, has had a couple of decent games coming back from, the heart issue. I actually don't mind him tonight. He's in a reasonable spot, and he's put up over 30 fantasy points in each of the last 3 games.
I don't mind him either. I'm not going to have a ton of exposure to him, but he definitely has looked well in his last few games.
Yeah, and at a reasonable price. I mean, you look on FanDuel, and he's at that 7K range. And on DraftKings, I mean, it's not a bad option, 67.
Yeah, it's a fair price on both sides. Then the Minnesota side, I just don't use guys against the Spurs. That's just me.
Yeah, I feel like Rubio, he's a little bit overpriced in this type of matchup. I mean, Pau Gasol, I have some GPP interest in building multiple lineups. I could see him getting out there and getting some run against Towns, but that's about it.
Yeah, there's just no one really else.
No. Bucks in Portland, 208 total. I do like this game quite a bit. It is filled with a couple superstars here tonight. As far as the Milwaukee side, I mean, it's been pretty straightforward with this team for about the last 2 to 3 weeks. It's basically Giannis and Middleton.
Yeah, basically the two of them. Giannis is listed questionable on DraftKings. I think he's going to be fine, though. I haven't really seen any news anywhere else. I don't know why DraftKings has him listed that way. But pretty much it's Giannis and Middleton. It's really tough to find anyone else with value.
Yeah, I think, Giannis left with the ankle, or didn't leave, but had a sore ankle after the game. I don't think he sits out tonight. Middleton safe in all formats. I'm just using Giannis in tournaments.
Same here. The Portland side is really fun, though.
Yeah, I mean, Nurkic is my favorite play of the night. I mean, especially at center. One gets a loaded matchup here against Milwaukee, bottom 10 against centers and rebounding. And his defensive presence is also huge. I mean, this is a guy who could easily rack up 7 or 8, blocks and steals combined.
Yeah, he's been killing it too this year. Ever since moving over to Portland, over 40 fantasy points, 2 of his last 3 games, and the third one he was 39.25. Milwaukee's not good against bigs, and he could just go off.
Yeah, I mean, 9 blocks over the last 3 games. I mean, we've just seen a lot of upside out of him. Definitely my favorite play just because, one, he's still under 7K.
Yeah, he's cheap. And then another guy I'm looking at in Portland on the cheap end, if you think Nurkic gets in foul trouble, or if you just believe in him getting minutes now, it's Noah Vonleh. He's almost been priced on DraftKings 3,500, and he's actually looked pretty good his last 3 games.
Yeah, we've seen Aminu get his minutes drop down. Myers Leonard always hasn't been the most guy who comes in and plays a ton. He's actually been pretty serviceable of late, and he's a guy who's actually flirted with a couple double-doubles.
Yeah, so if you need a guy towards the bottom to fill your power forward or center spot, he's not a bad option.
Yeah, definitely an interesting punt. I do like Lillard tonight if you do have some room to pay up at a point guard spot. I prefer Conley and Dragic in that middle range, but I do like Lillard.
I like Lillard too, and he's coming off that game where he was just lights out.
Yeah, and then back at home, I mean, reasonable matchup here. I know people don't like taking pointing guards against the Bucks, but I'm not worried about it.
I have a little concern because he's going to be high owned after coming off a 49-point game, but it's still not a bad spot for him.
Last one here, I mean, Battle of LA, Clippers and Lakers, 10-point spread. I just have a feeling Chris Paul is going to sit tonight for some reason. I've had it ever since last night.
I'm not sure. We're not going to find out till after lock, but he's definitely a good tournament play. Him, Griffin, Jordan, great tournament stack. We really think this game can stay close.
Yeah, it is. And I really like Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan's price on DraftKings a lot. I mean, Griffin's only 8K. Jordan's only 7K. Chris Paul even isn't that bad at 8,400. I mean, they've actually been priced down on DraftKings over the last few weeks.
Yeah, they're very reasonably priced on DraftKings. FanDuel, not bad as well. But if you think it stays close, I'd roll them out there in some tournament lineups. And you'd have to correlate it with D'Angelo Russell or something on the Lakers side.
Yeah, that's what we're talking. I mean, you look at these guys. One, they're not all that expensive. I think they're good GPP risks. Russell obviously coming off a monster game. Him and Clarkson been playing in the backcourt. I think that stays true tonight, where they're both going to start. I have a little bit of interest in Randall just because he does play well at home, but that's about it.
That's it for me too.
So let's wrap things up here. You can head on over to dayfantasycafe.com, check out our great tools and content.
Yeah, good luck, everyone.